Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. On this channel we post writing tips, unboxings, book hauls, book reviews and the occasional vlog. And today, this is going to be a writing tips video, but it's more of a discussion. And we will be discussing what is wrong with the Rincewind Discworld series. If you're not new here, you'll know I'm reading the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett in order. And one of the main characters in the Discworld is Rincewind, who is our failed wizard. Now, Rincewind is in the very first Discworld book, which is The Colour of Magic, which is an introduction to the Discworld, to Ankh-Morpork, and it is when you're basically given a tour, and Rincewind is our unwilling protagonist to this story, showing Twoflower around this city. It is known generally within the Pratchett-loving Discworld community that Rincewind books have flopped more or are harder to read than a lot of the other Discworld series. For example, Guards. Guards is up here. That is the series that a lot of Pratchett lovers will always recommend to a new reader to read. But what they don't generally recommend is to read Rincewind. And in this video, I wanted to discover why. So I thought I'd discuss with you guys what findings I found in my research of what went wrong in these books. These are the books that are in that series. The first is The Colour of Magic, followed by The Light Fantastic, Sorcery, Eric, Interesting Times, The Last Continent, The Last Hero, and The Unseen Academicals. I will try to go through these sort of in publication order because they do get better with a bit of a flop partway through. So let's begin with the first 4 books in the Rincewind series. Before getting to that, don't forget to like, receipt, to subscribe to this channel. Your continued support means a lot, so thank you guys so much. As I've already said, The Colour of Magic is the very first Discworld book. Pratchett is still discovering themselves as a writer, and as is The Light Fantastic. These 2 books really are so early in the series, and to be honest, the same goes for Sorcery and Eric. They are not far in the Pratchett series. All 4 do read as Pratchett finding his feet in the writing world. Within these books, Rincewind is our protagonist, but is actually a narrator who is sort of like a side character to their own story, and this is where the problem sort of begins. Although Rincewind is supposed to be the protagonist, they act more like a side character, and to be honest, they're just really narrating what is going on around them. I do sympathise with Rincewind. I like Rincewind as a character. I like their personality. I like their unwillingness, the comedy around them. But I struggle to be invested in the stories, and this is where we want to go into this. Very much seen in these 4 first Rincewind books. Reason number 1 is plot. In Pratchett's earlier works, plot was always something he struggled with. It just was. And it takes a while for him to get the hang of it. Now, with the Rincewind books, this is very much the era of Pratchett getting it. However, I would say by Interesting Times, Pratchett now understands plot, and Interesting Times is the first Rincewind book I actually really enjoyed. And I think it is partly because Rincewind as a character has realised that they are a semi-side character, that they are unwilling, that the world around them isn't going to give them a choice, so they kind of get more involved. But until this point, plot is not there, and sadly, after Interesting Times, we have The Last Continent, which for me was just a blip in the Pratchett universe, because by this point, other Pratchett books have got plot. This one does not. This book could have gone on with or without Rincewind, apart from the very end where he finds the rainmaking stick. That is all Rincewind really does. The wizards in it, pointless, just... Go to my review for this one if you want to know. I don't want to dwell on it. I would say for this issue of plot, it is not just Rincewind's books that do struggle with this. Witches Abroad follows pretty much the same structure as The Colour of Magic. You are given a tour of the Discworld in The Witches Abroad, and you are given a tour of Ankh-Morpork in The Colour of Magic. However, each individual section of the tour in The Witches Abroad has a little story. It just feels like short stories in one. So that also does have plot issues, but the witches' characters themselves sort of pull that forward more than Rincewind. And this leads me into number 2, character development. Rincewind develops very slowly. Not much changes with them until Interesting Times. So all the way through, they are the inevitable coward, and these 4 books, nothing changes. This one, it does change, returns to normal. In The Last Hero, Rincewind is definitely a side character, but his character itself has developed, so that is good. But to be honest, he doesn't fully develop until this point. You don't actually get any of Rincewind's backstory until Unseen Academicals. It is not until this book you really find out what happened to Rincewind and why they are a failed wizard. So the character plot and development moves too slowly, which means these books are all very samey. Number 3, story impact. Rincewind often has no impact on the story itself or in moving the plot. For example, in The Colour of Magic, as I've already said, in The Colour of Magic, Rincewind is basically a tour guide for Two Flower. Two Flower is our protagonist, not Rincewind. In The Last Continent, Rincewind is basically, to be honest, every character in The Last Continent is useless. You're just watching things happen to Rincewind. In The Last Hero, Rincewind is there as a narrator again. Nothing actually changes with Rincewind being there. Interesting Times is the closest thing to Rincewind having an effect on the plot, and even then, not so much. And finally, number 4, control. In most plots, the character arc and the story arc, it begins with normal everyday life. It morphs into the character losing control, and then the turning point is when the character gains control. They're making the decisions. They are moving the plot forward. You can see this in my story structure video. I'll pop links to that above me now. But that is the general structure and plot that a story must follow for this plot to move forward and for the character's arc to continue. Rincewind does not. Rincewind does not make decisions. Rincewind is a passenger to his own story, and this is one of the main issues I think Pratchett has with these books. However, Rincewind does have some positives. Like I have said, I like Rincewind as a character. I sympathise with Rincewind. He is very much a part of the Discworld series for me, but these books will never be my favourites out of them all. I have reviews for most of these. The Unseen Academicals is much later on. I have not got to reviewing that one yet, but he does mean a lot to me. So, positive 1, they are memorable. Everyone who reads Discworld knows who Rincewind is. Rincewind pops up in various other Discworld books. They are recognisable. We know them and we do love them and we do sympathise with them. They do stand out because they are a coward. Number 2, representation. Rincewind really represents the average person, and if there's anything you can take from Pratchett's Discworld world, it's that he wants to portray real life, and just the realistic side of Pratchett is why we love him so much. And Rincewind really is a person just trying to stay out of trouble, and it always finding him. And finally, 3, interesting times. This story worked for me. Rincewind's character works in the story. There's enough going on around him and he's accepted who he is that it works and it moves the plot forward. Also, luggage has babies. What's not to like about that? In conclusion, it's not that the Rincewind books are bad. They just don't hit in comparison to some of Pratchett's other work. And that's partly because Pratchett is just such a good writer. These are just sadly some of the duds within his work, and a lot of them are his earlier works. How can the first 4 Rincewind books ever compare to things like The Fifth Elephant and Carpe Jugulum and Masquerade, where Pratchett has been a writer for years? He has had so much practice by this point. It is understandable that these books cannot compare to this. The main thing is just that Rincewind was an early character within the Discworld series and Pratchett was learning. Rincewind is also seen as so many things to people reading it. You can see them as the side character, as the narrator, as the coward, but also some people view them as the mentor they have such a deep place in the Discworld series. They should not be missed, they should not be avoided, they just do not compare, and hopefully this video makes a little more sense to why they do not and cannot be compared with the later books in the Discworld series. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. If I see since I upload, click that little bell down below. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook and Tumblr. I post my bookish pictures as well as my writing tips and unboxings on there. And thanks for watching, guys. Bye!